Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 60th episode of eCHO, our eBPF and Cilium office hours. And there we are on YouTube. I had to double check. You know what happened the first time I was on here. All right, cool. Everyone, episode 60. I am not Liz and I am not Duffy. Hello, I am Tracy P. Holmes. I'm a technical community advocate here at Isovalent. For everyone out there, come ask questions. This is all community focused today. So if you have contributing questions or just community questions in general, come ask us. Now, first thing we're going to do, headlines. I only have two today because I really do like to focus on community and I want to make sure that we get all the questions we can. So headlines, let me share my screen. And we are doing this one. As always, the show notes, if you look into the description on on this particular YouTube episode, you will see a link to the show notes, which is what you are seeing on the screen. Let me get a better looking one. There we go. All right. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, of course, eBPF Summit. eBPF Summit 2022. The registration is still open. So I need you all to go register. But in addition to that, the schedule is now live. That looks like this. This is where you can register for your event. You've already seen the featured speakers. We've been talking about this for weeks, but what you haven't seen is the schedule. So we've got a little bit of everything on here. Go take a look. Make sure you register. Make sure you note which ones you want to see. And I want to see all of you while I'm hosting this thing in a few weeks. The other thing is, so Duffy went over the episode 13 of the newsletter last week, and he went through a couple of the articles that were on here. The one that stood out to me because it's something I plan on starting next week. I keep saying that. I promise I will. I'm saying that to Bill. You'll see him on screen. He's probably going to hold me to it. But there is a great how-to on getting started with Cilium with the K3S cluster. And it was very thorough. It even gives you like a small background on what Cilium is and eBPF and all of the commands and everything that you need to do, which falls in line with that home lab that we talked about like 2 months ago that I technically still haven't started. So make sure you check that out. And if you don't check that out, check out something on our wonderful newsletter. All right. Now that I've gotten that all out the way, community. Today's episode is going to be about community. What better way to do that than to chat with a maintainer for Cilium and our community cat herder. So I'm going to bring Joe and Bill onto the screen.
All right, Tracy, which one's which? Who's the cat herder?
I mean, multifaceted.
So both of you let everybody know who you are and what you do, and then we'll get started.
All right. So I'm Joe Stringer. I'm a software developer. I'm co-maintainer of Cilium, and I've been involved in open source communities for quite a while now, like Open vSwitch, the Linux networking stack, and eBPF stack. So I'm really excited to be here and talk about community.
And I'm Bill Mulligan. I come from like the cloud native side of open source, which I feel is a little bit different than some of the other people at Isovalent really have the Linux kernel background of open source, which is different. I don't feel like I know what's going on. I like to say, going on the B theme, that I'm the community pollinator, helping us all to grow and flourish and make the community a great place to be.
So you will usually see me with, mirror image. There we go. You will normally see me with Bill. He's on my team. And this is actually my first time getting a chance to talk to Joe. We've been passing by in meetings and Slack messages. So this is great. So what I'm going to do is, you all know I have a list of questions. You know I'm looking at a screen, so I'm not going to hide that. The first one could probably go for either one of you. So whoever wants to pick it up, you just answer once I ask. So who exactly or is the Cilium community? Like, what comprises the community? Or both.
start? I guess you've been around longer. Who is the
Yeah, I mean it's anybody involved, right? I mean it's the users of Cilium, it's the developers that are involved in writing the software. It's people just like sharing the word and like you know, showing what Cilium can do.
Bill, is that the same answer for you? Because I feel like it'd be a little bit different.
Yeah, so for me, like there's actually like a couple different like layers of the community. So like at the center is kind of the committers and maintainers. So like people that are Joe that are working in the community every single day. Then kind of like the next level are going to be the people who are creating GitHub issues like, hey, this isn't working, or this thing failed, or I'm trying to figure out this, or creating like CFPs about what they think Cilium should add, like this functionality would be great, or even just like commenting in the in this Cilium or in eBPF Slack. And then like kind of like, so they're kind of contributing to the project, but kind of like their experience rather than like directly code or something else. And then outside of that is just all the people that are adopting Cilium. So people that are using it in production, all of our adopters like Adobe, Bell, Google, or even the transitive adopters, or however you wanted to describe it, all the people, Cilium has really become kind of the standard CNI for Kubernetes across pretty much all the major cloud providers. So if you're spinning up a cluster on GKE or GKE Autopilot right now, you are using Cilium, whether you know it or not. So there's a couple different layers there. And then if we're looking at like, it depends on if you're looking at if it's people or companies that you want to focus on. I like to think of people more than companies because, you know, it's, for me, it's more about getting to know the people. And I have recently just pulled up the list for the top committers to Cilium, and Joe, you're in third place.
Do I want to know who the top
been around a little while, so I'll put it down to that more than anything.
Good night. I'm just happy I have like 2 commits in the entire repo right now. Like, what in the world?
So top place is on. This is from the beginning of the project. So top place is Andre, and second place is still Thomas. Though I don't think he's committed code in years.
It's been a little while.
That says a lot about how much. Oh wow, that puts things into perspective, though. Like if you think about it, I also neglected to say hello to some community people. Hold on, real quick before I ask the next question. So I got hello. Forgot to say hi to you. I forgot to say hi to Balats. I'm hoping I'm saying that correctly. Maz, hello. You're here every week. I like you. I really like that you come every week. That's very supportive. I appreciate that. Who else do we have? Hello. And we also have Rio and Sadiq. Hello, everybody. Oh, man, from Dubai. Holy crap. Hello. All right. Now, next question. Who is working on the project then? That you like walked right into that one, Bill. Of course, apparently Joe's working on the project, but like, I guess, is it more so people in our company? Because we all work for Isovalent. I don't know if you all realize that. But is it like more so people in the company that do a lot of the contributions? Are they mostly like external people? Like, who's actually working on the project?
Joe, do you want to go?
I think we need to figure out the protocol here. That's all good. Yeah, I mean, it's a range of people for sure. I mean, Isovalent has started the Cilium project, so we're obviously have like a significant like contributor base within the company. But increasingly, I think what we see is like various different clouds. We've got a bunch of folks like Google on the committers team. Various different like end users. So we've got folks like Datadog, Laurent there, and Vlad from Palantir. So it's kind of it's people who are developing on Cilium so that they can maybe like provide it in their cloud environment, or it may be people who are just like using Cilium and then just as they use Cilium, they figure out, oh, hey, what if like this thing worked like this? Like maybe I have some use case that's slightly different, or just want to make Cilium better in this particular way, and people start to submit patches and then kind of become more and more involved.
Yeah, and I would say, like on top of that, there actually is committers to Cilium from a wide range of companies. It's like Isovalent, like we said. Datadog actually is using Cilium and eBPF like at scale. We actually have a case study coming out pretty soon about the use case with CNCF, and they have a couple committers. We have also people from AMD, we have people from Google, from Palantir, someone from Docker, Red Hat. So there's a lot of people that are, and those are just the committers, and that's not all the people that are from different companies, whether they're submitting code or, like I said, pull requests or different features and stuff like that too. So lots of people from lots of different companies committed to growing Cilium. And then I guess the other thing that I'd kind of talk about too is it's not just open source isn't just about the code. Like, yes, the code's important too, but there's a lot of people out there that are also helping grow the project in different ways. So some of it's, a lot of people are writing like how to blog posts. So how to run Cilium on Oracle Cloud, or how to spin up a K3s cluster with Cilium. So there's a lot of great blog posts from that. If you want to get kind of like a overview of that, I'd recommend either checking out like the Cilium blog to see who's writing articles like that, or check out the previous eCHO News newsletter. And then there's also people doing things like either tweeting about it. My favorite tweet this week, it should be illegal to run Kubernetes without Cilium. That one is going to be the tweet of the week in the eCHO News. And then also people running events and meetups around Cilium too. So Nicholas recently went to like the CNCF Paris meetup, where we had one in Switzerland, I think last week. It looked like at the soccer or football stadium. Thomas is going to talk about Cilium at the Cloud Native Days Switzerland next week. So yeah, just the people going out, talking, creating events about Cilium and doing that too.
And when he says eCHO News, that's that newsletter that I was referencing at the very beginning. You can find a link to that in the show notes. You can also find a link on how to sign up to it in the show notes. And before I ask Joe this next question, I want to say hello to David. Hi, David. And hello, Sunnyvale LinkedIn user. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's see. You said something earlier. I love how you were like, I need to invite you all more often. You walk right into my questions and set them up perfectly. Like, thank you. Because my next question is, what's the difference between a maintainer and a committer in Cilium? Because I've heard both terms since we've been on here.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting question. I think like practically how someone becomes one of those is like there's not too much difference between the two. But I think where the difference really lies is the amount of kind of time and effort we spend thinking about community. So this can be practical stuff. This can be running community meetings, reviewing people's PRs, handling security reports, creating releases, and that sort of thing. So it's a very kind of practical thing, which I think tends to be more likely to be done by maintainers, but committers are also quite welcome to sort of participate in those processes. And then more broadly, we're kind of thinking about like, how do we set examples and guidelines for the community? How do we like amplify initiatives that are going to benefit the community as a whole? And we actually, we have this rotation system, which we call the top hat. So it's this hat that committers wear each week. And so we rotate this hat amongst the different committers. And so each week, one of the committers kind of acts in a sense like a maintainer and spends time on more community kind of oriented stuff rather than maybe what they're regularly involved in.
So is that like they get to go in and do they also get to like triage and stuff like that while they're wearing the hat?
Yes, this would be like triaging issues, trying to figure out, how severe is this issue? Is this going to affect like a large number of the user base? And in that case, maybe let's bubble that up. Let's have a discussion about how it is that we're going to mitigate that issue. Whether we need to, create a new release to try to mitigate that issue before it starts to affect a large number of users.
I'll probably ask this later, but I'm going to ask both of you later because I think you all probably approach this in a different way. But how exactly do you all get together and discuss those types of things is something I'm going to come back to. And then, go on.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you want us to answer, yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the big ones is we have a weekly community meeting every Wednesday, and anybody's welcome. You can just propose topics if you want to discuss topics that are relevant to the community, and we have like an open session kind of format where you can discuss those things. So that's kind of a collaboration point where we can, like, at least in the minimal sense, just introduce people to each other and say, hey, like, you're interested in this, you're interested in this, like, you guys should talk to each other. And then beyond that, of course, we use Slack pretty heavily for kind of synchronous conversation, going back and forth, and when you're actually able to talk at the same time. But sometimes it also makes sense to have like a longer form, thinking through of some problem that you're dealing with, and there would tend to use GitHub issues or GitHub pull requests for more of that kind of discussion.
In case you all want to know how to sign up for Slack, you can go to that link, get yourself signed up. We're like 10,000 strong over in that joint. So come join us. Bill, did you have something you wanted to add to that one?
Yeah, you're slightly low on the numbers. It's 12,500.
Yo, that's only been like 2 months. Are you serious?
Yeah. So just side note.
I apologize. Please reverse what I said and let's try it again. We're roughly 12,500 strong over in said joint. Goodness, I didn't know. Okay, yeah, I'll get back to that later. I'll start rambling. One more for Joe, and then I'm gonna flip it back to you, Bill. So growth of committers, like, have you seen how much growth? And I know Bill started a few months before I did, so I know the numbers are going to be different on this one. But how much growth have you seen committers wise? And then, like, in a broader spectrum, have you seen any differences in how Cilium is used, like since you started?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I mean, like, I'll start with the latter part. When I started, Kubernetes was not necessarily the obvious choice. Like, there were different management planes that were coming up right around that time, and so initially, when I was involved, we were actually talking about, like, how do we make sure that Cilium works with Kubernetes. I mean, we always knew that, like, okay, it's obvious that containers are the way that things are going, but what kind of technology is going to manage the containers on top of that? And so if we kind of contrast that to today, I think we look at, like, this huge difference in scale, a huge difference in the clouds that are involved in Cilium. We've mentioned, folks like Google being committers on the core team, and and I think the way that the committers group is comprised sort of maps partially to the features that are involved. So like, over time, we kind of add support for different clouds or different features and so on. And people who are interested in that kind of stuff are kind of naturally drawn to it, and then they'll get involved. And as you get involved, we'll invite you to the committers group, and then you're kind of part of the party.
Oh, nice. Sorry, I was muted. So let me ask Bill his version of this. How has growth been since you joined, Bill? And I guess we just saw a part of that in my surprise at how much has grown since I've been here.
Yeah, I guess you can just talk about, like, some of the vanity metrics for, like, Cilium. Those are, like, the easy ones to pull out. So things like the number of people in the Slack channel or the stars that Cilium has. I remember when I joined, we got a sticker for like 10,000 stars on GitHub, and now we're almost at 13,000. And I remember when people were like, "Wow, we've crossed 20,000 like issues and PRs, and now we're like almost like a 1,000 above." Just like, it sounds very, I don't know, cliche, but like it's like really taking off on all those things. I guess like on the more, like, I guess, like, human side, is like, it's really cool to see the excitement around Cilium, and that people like really like do love it. And I think that's the part that's more interesting for me. So, like I said, the tweet earlier about it should be illegal to not run Cilium with Kubernetes. Also, I remember being at the the Cilium booth at KubeCon, and that was a really cool experience for me because you could really tell that people were excited. Like, I felt like the whole time the booth was like really mobbed by people that were like, I know about Cilium. Tell me more about Cilium. I want to use it, or I'm already using it. How do I do this feature and functionality? And I think that excitement is something that I've never seen work at conference booth before. And I've worked a lot of conference booths. So that was quite fun for me. Also, the other thing is I add all the links to the blog, and sometimes I struggle under the load of being able to get like all the links onto the blog. So it's cool to see like other people are excited, are writing about it, are tweeting about it. And that excitement and energy is really fun to be a part of.
Yeah, I really want to echo that for sure about KubeCon. I mean, I think where Cilium kind of started with was like, how do we design like a networking layer for the future? And we started with these like, hardcore kernel hackers who are like working on eBPF, deep kind of technical stuff. But I remember when we announced the Hubble observability tools, and I think they're like really clicked with people to have this kind of visual representation of like, what does your app even look like in your cluster? What is the networking flows between the different apps in your cluster, and having this kind of, visual representation to say, also like how is eBPF making Cilium different here? Like, how can we now get additional visibility and expose all of that through this Hubble UI? And yeah, at KubeCon, like people were just like super excited, and it's a real vibe. It's cool.
I've seen pictures. There were a lot of people. There were tons of people. This is before I even started. And for those of you that don't know, I literally only just hit like 3 months here. So the surprise at us going from 10,000 when I started to like almost 13,000 in the Slack channel was an honest surprise. It's only been 90 days. So that should give you an idea of how we're growing. I actually have, Joe, I'm going to ask you this because it's a comment just to see if you can answer it. And if not, then we can take it offline, and then I'll ask the both of you a question. But it's a release question. Do you want a release question?
Let's take it. Let's do it.
All right, here we go.
So we're excited how Service Mesh evolves in Cilium. 2 missing features of Gateway API and MTLS. Do you know in which release they will be included? All right. So it's a very good question. So I know that people have been discussing Gateway API immediately. So I mean, I certainly can't commit to any kind of timelines right here, but I know that that's actually both of these features people are super excited about, and we'll be making different, some sort of development in that direction in 1.13. I personally I'm not developing that that feature, so I can't tell what is the actual scope and what do we need to do and all this kind of stuff. So I couldn't go too much detail there, but I know that those are high on the list. And I think this is mostly informed by community members like you. This is we did this Service Mesh survey earlier in the year, and we're looking at which are the key features in Service Mesh that everybody's looking for, and we're using that to inform how we should spend our time as Cilium contributors, and how we can push Service Mesh forward.
So you had an easy out, but Michi decided to come in clutch, and the answer to your question, Balat, is...
Michi knows what he's talking about. Coming soon.
So I guess just keep watching. Just see what's happening. Keep up with those change logs. Let's see what's going on. Somebody at the KubeCon booth said the KubeCon booth was really busy, but the team there was great and made sure nobody left with unaddressed questions. And I'm glad you had that experience. So thank you. You all, I should be there for the Detroit KubeCon. So I'll take any holy water or anything you all want to give me, because I feel like it's going to be busy. And I don't know if I'm ready for in-person conference season yet, but we'll see. So this one is for both of you. How do you engage with the community during your day-to-day? Bill, I'm gonna start with you on that one.
Okay, cool. I kick off every single day with a fresh cup of coffee and scrolling through Twitter. And so actually it's a fun way to see kind of what's happened over the day. And it's cool to see the new blog posts and stuff that everyone's coming out with. So adding those to the blog and seeing what people are talking about. Then it's probably either helping people get things done in the community or asking other people to help out with different things in the community. We actually have, it's 5 or 6 different case studies being written up or like end up being from published to like just like setting up a time to meet. So working with people in the community, that's another great way to see people's excitement. They're like, yeah, we're using like these features of Cilium. It's really helped us achieve this in our business and, kind of like accomplish these different things. There's actually one coming out right now where the company is dealing with like employment information, and they implemented Cilium to help them kind of implement a zero trust networking with that information, because it's obviously important to keep that protected. So yeah, different things like that. And then running around, we actually just announced today we're going to have somebody working through the LFX mentorship process about improving the supply chain security and release automation for the Cilium project. So helping more people get involved in open source. We also have someone working for Google Season of Docs to improve our documentation structure. So hopefully it's easier for people to find the information that they need. So part of my job is also helping people get started in the community. So yeah, lots of different things running around. And honestly, if there's anything that you need, just feel free to ping me on Twitter or on Slack, and I'm happy to help out. We also do have a form that you can submit if you want swag for a meetup, if you want me to retweet something from the Cilium handle, and I missed it, if you want to add something to the eCHO newsletter. I'm always happy to chat with people in the community.
All right, yeah. I mean, I think the number one for me is probably through GitHub. I wake up, I have my cup of coffee, and I go through my list of GitHub notifications. Yeah, I mean, like we've set up this code owners system in GitHub, which allows when you post PRs and things that it will then notify people who are interested in a particular area of Cilium. And so I kind of use that as one of the ways that I drive which PRs I should take a look at. And then beyond that, for sure, like involving in Slack, I probably spend like at least 30 minutes per day, just like scrolling through different channels, just like looking at what people are asking, doing a little bit of kind of like patterns, like, hey, if we have like 5 people ask about this one thing, then like maybe we should be looking more closely at that question and like what is driving that question. Is there like a technical solution to that, or is there like a community solution to that? Like how do we actually try to solve the problems that people are having there? And then beyond that, I think just like leading by example. So if I have questions about Cilium, I'm not sure how this works, then I'll like ask the questions in Slack, right? And part of the motivation there is to say like, I'm a maintainer, but I don't know everything. And I want to make sure that everybody feels like if I don't know something, it's okay to ask. It's okay to be wrong. And like, that's how we all learn, right? So like interacting on Slack, getting that kind of personal interaction with the other community members.
That's actually how the whole idea for this particular episode came about, because the one thing that we always hear about you two is how freaking helpful you are. And I was talking to Liz and she was like, community. I was like, community. All right. So I'm glad. Thank you all for being so helpful. And to be honest, everybody in that particular Slack group is extremely helpful. And that's very helpful for me, because even though I work here, I definitely am still learning. And so everybody's really approachable. When I was going through the interview process, Liz made the mistake of saying something about I get to talk to engineering or work with engineering. And I was like, what, plumbers engine? I'm sorry, what now? Which is kind of daunting to hear, like, oh yeah, the people you work with are like the creators of this and they're the maintainers of that. And you're just like, why would I talk to them? I don't understand. No, I'm that meme of like the lady with all of the like all the functions floating around her face, trying to figure it out. That's my day to day. That's how I start. Let's see. All right. Following up on that, what motivates you to engage with the community? Because we all know open source communities can be a little forward with how they feel.
That's like such a good question. Yeah. I mean, it kind of digs deep into your psyche. I think it's at some level. No, I mean, like for me, I'm a big proponent of open source. Like I've been, some of my first interactions with open source was trying to like run Gentoo Linux in the early 2000s, just like trying to figure out like, wait, you have to compile the whole system and like, build it all from scratch. And like, I have no idea how any of this works. But there was a community there. There was, really good documentation. There's like, here's what you do. And then back in those days, it was IRC, not Slack. So like jump in the IRC channel and like, how does this work? And there were a lot of helpful people back then, right? And people kind of providing an opportunity to learn. And so it's super interesting to see just the way that people just kind of hang out online. Oh, wait. Practical Guide to Linux. All right.
That's the old Goodwill find that I still use for reference. Oh, sorry. What about Joe? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But when you said IRC, like I immediately went back to
take it back.
Ask Jeeves, and this book and trying to learn because I like breaking things. What about you, Bill? Especially since you start off on Twitter, which I feel like is a bold move, but someone has to do it.
Yeah, I think the thing that draws me into open source the most is I'm not like really a fan of hierarchy. And in open source, if you want something done, you can just do it pretty much. Or if you see like a gap or something that needs to be solved, then you can just go do it. Like just make the PR. Even if it's like my first commit to, or my first like contribution to open source was in Kubernetes. It was literally just like the link was broken. The header had slightly changed, so it didn't go to the right place. And I was like, well, this should be fixed. And so I just was able to fix it. I think that's what really draws me into open source is the ability to, like scratch your own itch and fix your own problems. I think that's what's kind of exciting. On top of that, I really like how in open source you get to interact with people from a lot of different companies. I like I like meeting with people and like hanging out and saying hi. And I think it's cool that you can. It's the same thing. Like you're not limited to like this company that people tell you you can work with. You can really work with like anybody. And so if you want to be like, hey, I'd like to work with you like that on this, then that's a really cool opportunity. So like, for instance, for eBPF Summit, we're having like watch parties like all around the world. And so I got to reach out to a bunch of people that I knew from various like different things I've done in open source and be like, hey, like I know you're interested in eBPF. Would you be interested in like running a watch party? We can send you some swag and go hang out. So that was pretty cool too. And yeah, I think this is kind of like the ability to just make things happen. That's what I like about open source the most.
For those of you that want to know what watch parties we already have, whenever you go register, because you all will be registering for eBPF Summit, if you're on the site and you go to the drop down, you will see host a watch party if you'd like to host your own, or you can find out more information about the ones that are already in progress. Anything else on that before we move on? Okay. And to your point, Bill, documentation is the hill I will die on, because I hate for people making other people feel like if they don't know how to code, they can't contribute. We don't do that, which is one thing I love about being here, because not all companies are like that. Not the ones that have open source projects. But also, yeah, we're pretty open to picking up stuff and working on things I'm still working out. Bill actually fussed at me about that last week. He's like, stop overthinking it and just do it. Like, who's going to tell you no? I was like, you know what? You're right. I'm going to hit the button. But that's something if you've ever seen me in any other live streams or in any other place, I'm very open about, like, it's very hard for me not to overthink what I'm doing because of my background and where I used to work. And there, if you've ever worked for the government, it takes 3 months and a couple of red signatures before you can get anything done. And so you just don't pull the trigger on anything. So yeah, I love being here because it is welcoming. And that's pretty much why I've stayed in open source. You don't have not everybody has the hierarchy. And I appreciate that. Like, especially if somebody believes in you to do the job that you got hired to do. Let's see what's next. All right. So this one is for Joe. How do you balance community engagement with your other responsibilities at Isovalent?
This question. I mean,
that was from somebody else in my defense.
Yeah, like I mean, I don't think it's a particularly elaborate question, but I'm kind of a big believer in like time boxing. And if I say like, okay, I want to spend 30% of my time on community stuff, then like if I just look at my calendar and I say, okay, like what does 30% look like, and I just say like, here's a block, like that's 30%. And now I know like, okay, if I'm prioritizing my time based on like what I actually believe I should be spending that time on, right? Then I just need to look at my calendar and say, okay, it's community o'clock, right? It's like time to do that stuff, right? So I mean, that's kind of not a super elaborate kind of answer, but I think it's an effective one.
Yeah, for me, I guess I kind of have the cheat code. Being on the community team, I'm 100% focused on community, so I don't really have to balance my responsibilities as much. Yeah, and I really enjoy doing all of that. Obviously, there are things that need to be done around Isovalent that I help out with too, but I'm lucky where I get to mainly focus on just community things. And yeah, it's really fun working under Liz with Tracy. See, I got it this time. Third time's the charm. Yeah, so that's how I balance it.
I think the other thing that I thought of was I do kind of look for opportunities where I can just make both things the same thing. So like, maybe we're dealing like a customer support issue or something like that, right? And we need to develop a patch that's going to fix that issue. Then how do I then like bring that into the community space and allow people who have knowledge about that area or can help contribute and help like solve this problem? How do I like engage with those people in the community as well? And so I think they don't always have to be kind of at odds or competing with one another. We do have a lot of opportunities for them to be one and the same.
Those are good answers. Let's see. What else I got? All right. Now we're on the convince people to contribute side of things. So what is a path, and this is for either or both, what is a path for someone to get involved within the Cilium community and or a project? Like, what do they need to do, or how do they do the thing?
Yeah, one thing that I'll probably put a shout out for is like the getting started guides. They're named that because hopefully it's a good way to get started. Right. So like try it out. Like why are you interested in Cilium? And then like how can you kind of pull on that thread and then start like playing around with the features that you're interested in? Like what feature do you want? Like or is there something that you'd like Cilium to do that's like slightly different from what it does today? So how could you kind of like nudge things towards what you want it to work like? And yeah, if something doesn't quite work the way that you expect, then that's kind of interesting. So you kind of like pull on that and say, okay, why doesn't it work the way that you thought? Like you thought it would work this way. So then how can we kind of poke and prod at it, like run some CLI commands, try to figure out like, okay, like what does Cilium tell us what it's doing? Or if you're getting further into development, then like just attaching the debugger, setting some breakpoints, and just being like, all right, let's step through like what is it actually doing here. So it really depends on kind of where on that development journey I think you are, but yeah, maybe Bill will have another answer.
Yeah, I have a completely different answer. Because a fun fact about me is I have absolutely no coding background. So it's very funny to me that I've ended up in deep Linux kernel subsystems because I don't know. So I'm very much on the non-code contribution side of the community and helping people do that. So there's a couple like simple ways to do it. So like a really simple one is like tweet your support of Cilium. So when I'm reading my Twitter in the morning and drinking my coffee, I can see that and like feel a little smile, a little heart inside. The next one is if you're writing anything about like Cilium or eBPF, is to submit it to the eCHO newsletter. Like I said before, if you go to the eCHO News website, you can either just email it to me, send it to me on Slack, just tag me on Twitter. I'm happy to add it to the Cilium blog. I'm happy to add it to our letter, and that creates more distribution for you. I also help community members write blog posts too. So if you're writing a blog post about Cilium, so for instance, we had one about the layer 4 load balancer and how the company is using that. And so we help them with like the technical review of that, getting it on the Cilium blog post or Cilium blog. I can help you with that. That's really simple. There's lots of non-code contribution ways you can contribute to Cilium, and those are also awesome too. If you want to go speak at a conference, I'm happy to help you write your CFP. I'm happy to help you write your talk. I've actually, I review a lot of CFPs, and it's something I actually enjoy doing. So if you send it to me, I'm happy to help out with that. That's another great way to help spread the word about Cilium, because obviously we can't be everywhere in the world all the time, and you probably have a local meetup that you know the organizers and could go talk about if you want to talk about like the Cilium project. And then other things on top of that, if you're running a meetup and have one about Cilium, and the last one is, if you are using Cilium, is to add yourself to the users doc. You're contributing to open source. You're helping us tell the story. You're telling other people that you're supporting it and helping encourage them to adopt them. And to kind of combine all of that from start to finish is, I saw somebody was talking about they're using Cilium on Twitter. So I asked themselves to add themselves to the user doc. And now Magic Leap has just submitted their pull request to add themselves as a user of Cilium. So there we go. Lots of non-code contributions to be made to Cilium too, and they're also awesome. In fact, you can even have a full-time job out of it because they are paying me just to work on the community. I don't have to worry about community o'clock like Joe.
For those of you that want to know where to go, I've added most of these in the show notes. If you saw it pop up on the screen where it said the telling story, that's where you can ask for Bill's help if you don't want to tweet him, because I know not everybody has Twitter. But fill in that when he says he's the most technical, non-technical person I've ever met in my life. He really does. He reviews our CFPs. So he's not just doing you alls, and he goes through them and he gives great feedback. So definitely take him up on, oh yeah, I'm putting you in the fire now. Definitely take him up on that offer to assist you. Do that thing. But also the other URL I popped up on the screen was the users, and it's also in chat. Yes. So where you can add yourself to the users, it tells you everything you need to do, your requirements and all that kind of good stuff. So make sure if you're using, let us know. Let's see. How do you, well, you kind of answered this a little bit already, Bill, with the, with your answer about the ways that you assist, but just in case, how do you support members of the community? This is for both of you. I guess Joe can go first this time. That way I can take away you all having to play rock, paper, scissors. How do you support members of the community on their path to contributing to Cilium?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit about getting started guides and kind of pulling on the string. So I guess in that kind of line, I think of it as like, how do I nurture curiosity? So I see somebody asking a question, and I say okay, how can I encourage you to ask the next question? Like, how do we pull on that and just get deeper and deeper and deeper? And so nobody just jumps straight into the project and knows everything about how everything fits together. So if you're interested in some feature, then how do we make sure that it's easy for you to deploy that feature? If you have problems deploying that feature, answer questions and that sort of thing. And then just kind of help put that tooling in place so that when you want to figure out what that feature is doing, you can start to poke and prod at it and say okay, how does Cilium interact with this part of the feature? Or when I turn this flag on, how does that work? And just kind of get those questions asked, one question after another, and you kind of just dig a little bit deeper each time. So I think that's mainly probably done just via Slack, just ad hoc threads somewhere in the development channel on the Slack.
Joe, because I'm not sure. Oh, say what you're about to say, Bill.
I was just going to go to my answer, but if you're still on Joe, you can keep going.
No, it's totally different. So.
Okay. I was going to say, as the non-technical person who doesn't have the background in the kernel, one thing I do to help people contribute to Cilium is help them figure out what sign-off means on your commits. Because it's something I struggled with when I first started. I was like, what is this? How do we do it? What is this, squashing a commit? And sometimes I also advise people that they should just close their pull requests and start over because it's going to be simpler. Because I've also done that multiple times in Cilium, because once you mess up Git, unless you really know what you're doing, like Quentin, you're in trouble. So if you're just adding yourself to the user doc, sometimes it's easier to just start over. So that's how I help people get through the contribution process too.
The reason it took me so long to update yesterday is because I forgot that I needed to sign off. And then when I went and looked, it wasn't using my isovalent email. It was using my other email. And so then I tried to rebase, and then I screwed it all up. And it just so happened I'd already put the PR in. And so I just took my hands off and submitted the PR, and then just like waited for somebody to merge. And then I just wiped my entire repo like nothing ever happened. So that's how I approach the DCO. But if you all go and look at the docs, there's an entire guide about the DCO in there that tells you what you need to do. GitHub has a good one also in their documentation. But it's basically you adding a line saying signed off by who you are and an email address. But it's more difficult than it sounds if you're not used to doing it. Here was my question before we wrap this up. Editor.cilium.io. I don't know that people really know about that particular thing. Can one of you explain what that is? Because it's very, very helpful once you find it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think this was born out of like one of those like questions, like how do I write network policy? And like we do have policy documentation that describes the semantics of the docs and all this kind of stuff. And of course, if you're the type of person who loves to read docs, then like you can go through the Cilium docs, you can find out how all that stuff works, right? But not everybody, necessarily works like that. I know personally, I'm quite a visual person. So maybe a little first, like what is editor.cilium.io? So it's a visual network policy editor. So it like puts boxes. You can click on the things. You can say, okay, which pods are going to be selected by this policy, and then like which pods should that policy that pod should be able to access. So like, can it talk to some destination, either another pod in the cluster or some like domain name somewhere that app is using, and then can it also receive traffic from different places? And so yeah, so we did put together a little tutorial here, which you can go through. And yeah, unfortunately, it doesn't support mobile or small screens. So
there we go. I had the window too small. There we go. Yeah. But it's so like, I don't think you all get it, like how cool this thing is. It just happened to come up in a meeting one day. One of those meetings where Bill forgot that I was his coworker and didn't say my name when he was talking about his team, but we're not going to talk about that. But this thing, if you're not great with writing policies, you go in here, you start clicking some buttons. You can see how everything is programmatically, how it looks in diagram form, and you copy and paste the policy. And you can either do it in Kubernetes network policy format, or you can click over here and it's really, really helpful. And I don't think a lot of people know about it. So that's what made me want to shout it out. I will pop this up on the screen. I don't know if I did that earlier, but that's what that looks like.
Yeah, if you ever forget where that is, so on Slack, we have this like network policy channel, and it's always pinned or bookmarked at the top there. So if you ever are thinking like, oh, how does network policy works? Okay, Slack, network policy. Oh, there's the link. You can click it right there. But editor.cilium.io is pretty easy as well. So, and maybe a little known feature, this is probably getting a bit advanced, but you can even upload flows into that policy editor. So you use Hubble to observe your traffic, and then you just like feed it in, and then it will tell you back a policy. So,
that's what the flows upload button is. Imagine that.
Yeah. Imagine that.
Cool. All right, let's see if we have any questions. This has been enjoyable. Anybody have anything else? I know Joe does. Bill, did you have something before Joe gives his shout out, because he has a good one? All right, go for it, Joe.
All right, yeah. So Linux Plumbers is coming up in a couple of weeks. So this is a community event run by folks in the Linux kernel community. So that's like right adjacent to the Cilium community. So I know that I'll be there. A bunch of Cilium folks will be there. I think the on-site might be closed, but the virtual attendance is still open. Okay. So I think maybe you'll have a link there. Yeah, definitely check it out if you're kind of interested in kind of technical kind of details about how we're building the next generation of features into the eBPF subsystem in the Linux kernel.
And there will be a live stream funded by the eBPF Foundation. So if you can't be there in person, then you can watch the live stream.
I was still waiting for somebody to pack me in their suitcase to take me to Dublin, because I'm just saying. We'll talk, Joe. We'll
take it offline.
Yeah, we'll talk. No, I guess that this has been very. I should do this again in a few months. This has been very enjoyable. Thank you all for being my guests. Show notes, as always, in the YouTube description. Go check those out. Everything that we spoke about today will be in there, links included. For those of you that don't want to go to the show notes but want to know how to sign up for Slack, hit that link. Take you right in there, and we've got tons of helpful people, all 12,000 plus of some of them in there that are willing to help ask questions. And our engineers are actually very active in there, which I'm happy, because I don't really know anything about Tetragon yet. And so poor Natalia gets an earful from me. I just ping her all day about people asking questions. But I will see you all another time. If you don't see me before eBPF Summit, come say hi to me at eBPF Summit virtually. I will give you a shout out, as always. And then next Friday, I don't know what Duffy's talking about yet, but make sure you join next Friday so you can join Duffy's Echo. All right, everybody. That's going to be it. We're going to do that really weird freeze thing where we wave and then wait until it says we're offline. So we're going to say bye for now.